Can I say something? So I am a boy mom, and I have girlfriends that it makes me cringe sometimes the way I hear them talk to their sons, right? And I have told my girlfriends, I said, you're creating a monster without even really knowing it, because the first level of disrespect most young men feel come from their mother first, and it's really sad because I think someone up here said they feel like they have to be the mother and the father to the kid. So, it's the way some women talk to their boys, and it's so disrespectful. And then I see that child, because he has to endure that because it's his mother. He's not going to disrespect her most of the time. So when he becomes a grown man, then he feels like no woman will ever talk to me the way I was spoken to. And then they have this hard exterior, which I have noticed. I'm only speaking to what I've experienced. So if it doesn't apply, please let it fly. But I have seen young men that had to put up with their mother's mouth when they were in the mother's home. And then when they get out of the home, now no woman will ever disrespect them like that. And I think it's sad because it's like Frederick Douglass say, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken adults. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to get these babies right when they're young, and preferably in a house where a father can teach them how to be a man, because we can't teach boys how to be men. We can't do it no matter how we try. We can teach them how to be soft and how to be gentlemen and all that stuff like that, but we cannot teach a boy how to be a man. We don't know how to speak to that because we're not men. And I just think we need to do a better job of allowing these children's fathers to be a part of their lives, because a lot of women, not all, get mad at the father and don't want the father around the child, and then that becomes an issue as well. Now you have this child around you constantly because you're pissed off at the father. We have to separate emotions from raising a child. Just because he don't like you don't mean he doesn't love his child. And that's what I mentor young ladies, because it's so important to me. I want to see our girls do better. They call me auntie. So if I'm going to be an auntie, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to try to keep you from banging yourself upside the head so that you can go off and be better, because each one got to reach one. That's how I feel. And this is a sensitive topic for me because children, they don't get to choose their parents. They get handed what they get handed. And sometimes it's not a good thing, and women are very emotional. We are driven more by emotion. And when things go bad with the dad, we tend to take it out on the children. It's a lot. And like I said, I'm not saying all, but that single mother thing that we be so proud of. I don't need you, I could do it by myself. No, you can't, because your emotions won't let you. And when you get pissed off because you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulder, then your children suffer. And I'll land right there.
Exactly, Boston. I agree with everything you said.
So let me just chime in real quick, and I just want to say this towards the topic. Everybody made good points, by the way, but I do want to say this because I know people try to talk about how the men are leaders and how the upbringing impacts their ability to lead. But what I will say to that is, if we're going to hold men accountable for how they lead, we also have to be honest about who taught them. You know what I'm saying? How to handle emotions, um, conflict, and women. And that usually starts with the mother. A lot of these so-called toxic traits in men, they're not coming from their fathers. They're coming from being over-mothered, emotionally manipulated, or raised without structure. So what I do want to say to everybody out there in the chat, that's if you want better man, you got to raise boys in homes where the woman respects the man so the boy learns how to respect himself. Because I strongly believe that if the boy was able to witness the father figure, his father, whatever, whoever is in the household, if he's able to witness the man being respected by the women, it indirectly impacts his ability to respect his own self. And I'll land right there.
If I could just add to that, I don't I don't disagree with that, but I will add to it. It is how the single mother raises their son, but it is that coupled with every man that boy encounters, but also the boys that they encounter in school as well. That is how they learn how to manage their emotions and interact with women and people. It is both. It can be very good or very bad, or good and bad, but they are encountering people, they're encountering men outside the home. It may not be the father's influence, but it is a man's influence somewhere, because you're not learning all of that from your mother. You are definitely, it's coupled with every other person that you, every other man that you come in contact with as well.
Yeah,
That's
but
how
but
we're
the
Now,
only thing, the
socialized.
only issue is there's no confusion. Whenever he deals, when he run into multiple men or multiple teachings or concepts of how a man is respected, he may be faced with the confusion, and he can always report back to home base and see how that aligns with the man in the house, and he can check all of that stuff down. But when you don't have a man in the house, there's nothing to check down. You're just left out there on the whim. You get what I'm saying?
Um, sort of. I don't completely disagree, but I will have to slightly disagree, because even if that man was in the house, there will still be influence, because you have to understand that kids find more value outside of the home at a certain point than they do inside of the home, because outside of the home is new and it's fresh, but you've always seen and heard your parents. So you are heavily influenced by something that looks cool or sounds cool, or you're at school with the boys and they're sharing with other boys what they've been taught. You're influenced either way. So even if the
So let
man
me
was
get this
at
straight.
home,
You're saying that newness trumps an intrinsic value that a boy can get from his house, the father in his household.
it adds to, is what I'm saying. It doesn't trump, but it definitely does add to. That father cannot fight that outside influence. It
Can you give me an
can't.
example? Can you give me an example of what that will look like of a boy running into an outside influence that his
We
father
see it all.
would be incapacitated to deal with?
I'm not saying incapacitated, but we see it all the time. We see these boys raised in two-parent households, but they're heavily influenced by the streets. And there's nothing that their parents can do about that, because they're just going to be influenced by the streets, because it's new and fresh and fun to
Well,
them.
I agree that there's some influence outside.
Yeah.
Whether or not he yields to the influence is where I'm kind of lost at.
Okay.
So I'm lost at. I'm trying to see what is the likelihood of the boy yielding to the outside influence when he actually has a father in the house counteracting that.
That's
It
I
usually
mean,
is.
an
very
It's
example would
very
be
likely.
smoking. Most people smoke, and I don't think anybody's parents advocated for them to smoke. A lot of people do Percocets. I don't think anybody's parents advocated for them to do Percocets. It doesn't matter how active your parents are in that household. These teenagers are literally going to get vapes as 13-year-old eighth graders with two parents in the household. They're sneaking and doing these things. And it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm just blatantly disrespecting my parents, because I can get where your confusion may come from, because it's like, I'm an active father, I'm a man, I'm present. Yeah, nobody's negating you're not doing your job, but
Right.
children are children, and they're sneaking and doing these things because the outside influence is like, I want to be cool too. We all went through our phase of I want to be included.
the
and I
point
can
that he's
say
making is it's gonna the parents' leadership and influence is going to absolutely supersede whatever outside influence there is. I got two teenagers; they don't do none of that shit, and they never will. And I will bet on it. I will bet any of y'all any of that type of money that my children won't do that. And you know why? Because I'm active. Because I've created that space where my children can talk to me comfortably. And if you are fucking up out there, it's a result of poor parenting. I don't understand why we're trying to erase or minus accountability.
No.
This is what we love to do. There is such a thing as good parenting and shitty parenting. There are some shitty parents, and in more cases, the overwhelming majority, if you were doing your thing as a parent, you're likely going to have children that are doing well in life.
there's
There's
also
not.
shitty kids too. Sorry, there
What's
are
that?
bad people. There are bad people, like bad kids in general. Like For example, every
Yeah.
kid has a different personality. You'll have some kids who want to go along and who are never going to stray from you, and you have those other kids who are just wayward, who want to do it because that's just something in them.